Donald Trump is ushering in the Great Reset at lightning speed. And I know that's going to upset people for me to say, but listen, we passed the Genius Act. We're implementing Real ID. We're now talking about 50-year mortgages. You know how they said you'll own nothing and you'll like it? Well, What's a 50-year mortgage? It's a 50-year rent. That means if I buy a house at 20, I don't pay it off till I'm 70. Most people will never own their homes. It's absurd. You're going to pay hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest on even a small home in a rural area. And I see online, well, you don't have to do it. Oh, you don't. But when BlackRock, through Blackstone and their other partners, owns all the property, and for you to buy a house, it's a 2,000 square foot's going to cost $500,000. You tell me how you're going to do that on your $100,000 a year salary.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Meet the world's first living, full-spectrum, certified organic CBDA hemp extract. Ness's hemp oil was extracted from seed to bottle without chemicals, solvents, or heavy metals, and it surpasses world-class standards for purity. This pure and powerful CBDA has been proven to reduce aches and pains, ease mental tension, and promote better sleep. To get yours today, visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. Good morning, everybody. Happy Veterans Day to all of you veterans out there. We just want to acknowledge you and thank you for your service and sacrifice, and to your families as well. Blessings to all of you, and welcome to the State of Freedom, where we are grounded in faith in the Constitution, and we are committed to giving voice to truth, living with courage, and taking action. It is Tuesday, November 11th at 10 a.m. Central, just a few minutes after. I'm Danielle Walker, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, the watchdog-in-chief, the bulldog-in-chief of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, Chris Alexander. We are coming to you live. Good morning, Chris. We are coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network, on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. You can always catch us later on our podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple as well. Well, we have a treat for you this morning. Let me pull him up. Here we go. Welcome, Tom. Joining us today is, sorry about that, I cut you off, but I was just going to give your introduction, Tom. Joining us today is someone we have seen as a relentless voice for truth, justice, and sovereignty. Tom Renz is an attorney, best-selling author, and self-described inappropriate host of The Tom Renz Show. There are so many topics that we could cover with Tom, but today we'll be getting his insight on the dangers of the real ID. And if we have time, we'll get his views on the government shutdown and last week's fake elections. Before we get into it, let me read the scripture of the day. It is a familiar one to this crowd. It's 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 11 to 12. And it says, "Aspire to lead a calm and peaceful life as you mind your own business and earn your living just as we've taught you. By doing this, you will live an honorable life, influencing others and commanding respect of even the unbelievers. Then you'll be in need of nothing and not dependent on others." And the Lord has been bringing me back to this scripture, and he's brought me back to it a number of times for this show lately. This morning, he brought me back to the passage, but I think it's so apt. You know, the Apostle Paul was teaching and encouraging the believers in Thessalonica to be hardworking and self-sufficient financially. And there's a great example of this scripture at work in the early American settlers. The first settlers who came from Europe to Plymouth demanded financial self-sufficiency and respect for private property among the people who were with them, because they understood this scripture and applied it. And that led to great favor with the native tribes they encountered, and it even opened the door for them to preach the gospel to the Native Americans, just as the passage here said that it would. But their counterparts who settled at Jamestown called themselves Christians too, but they had a poor understanding of the scriptures, and they operated completely differently. The Jamestown settlers were lazy, they were unwilling to work, they were dependent on the crown to feed them, and they set up a socialistic government. And as a result, we learn that Jamestown devolved into starvation and the savagery of cannibalism and slavery. Why? Because the government will fail you. The contrast could not be more stark. The Lord blessed and sustained the colonists at Plymouth, and Jamestown was the story of dependency, failure, social and moral rot. And the difference can be traced back to one thing. The settlers at Plymouth had a clear understanding of this scripture and how to apply it, and those at Jamestown did not.
Yeah, that's a great comparison, Danielle. It really is. And a significant part of it was the dependence upon government rather than the cultivation of self sufficiency, And our guest today, I can't think, I was giddy. I was giddy when we scheduled Tom Renz to come on the show today. I'm such a huge fan of his because of Tom, you remind me in some ways of Nat Hentoff, who died, but he was a writer many, many years ago. And he was always way ahead of the game when it came to warning against the steady encroachment of government upon our liberty and our freedom. And you've always been on the front lines of that as a lawyer and just as an advocate, going back to COVID and now this Real ID. So I can't tell you how excited we are to have you on the State of Freedom for a little while today.
Well, it's my great honor to be here. I appreciate it. And I got to tell you, what we do here is what will save our country. It's the shows like this. It's the people like you guys. It's people getting active. It's people understanding. I'll tell you one of our strategies, one of my secret sauces during COVID, because you understand, I come from nowhere. I'm just a small town guy. I'm not a big shot. I'm not connected. I'm not funded. Certainly none of the big guys want to fund me. One of the most important things we did during COVID was we went on and we talked to people who had podcasts and did shows and did things and had communities. And you have a community in Louisiana and around the country, and I'm assuming you've got some people around the world. And that's critical. We need to reach your community. We need to give them the warnings. We need to let them know what's going on. We have to empower them, just like you guys do every day. The combination of the use of the scripture, true teachings of history, these sorts of things, they're foundational. And when we empower people with truth, the light of truth will set us free. And that is really the key thing. It was one of the most foundational aspects of what we did during COVID, was going on and on and on and on and doing more and more and more media to try and educate people, because at the end of the day, I can do this much in a court, but the power of the people is immeasurable.
Yeah, well said. Tom, how much of this goes back? Well, I guess to an extent, the COVID tyranny could be related to this, but certainly this Real ID. How much of this goes back to the Patriot Act? I remember being alarmed at the very beginning of the Patriot Act, saying, and the words of the founding fathers sort of resonating in my head that, the greatest tyrannies are manufactured at the altar of what appear to be the greatest benevolence, trying to solve emergencies and all of that. But how much of this is rooted in the poison of the Patriot Act?
I would go so far as to say, and I understand that this is quasi conspiracy theory, but I would say that all of the push towards the Great Reset we're experiencing now probably really kicked off with 9/11. Now, I was in Washington, D.C. on 9/11. I woke up, I could see the smoke from the Pentagon. That's across the Potomac. I could see, or across the river. I mean, it was a really shocking thing. And at the time, I was all on, oh my God, we got to fight back, yada, yada, yada. I didn't realize, I really did at the time, was so swept up that it didn't occur to me that Building 7 fell for no apparent reason. It just decided to fall, right? Now, can I prove that 9/11 was a conspiracy? No. I mean, I can prove it was a conspiracy, but whether or not it was a conspiracy theory that we all think it might have been, I can't. And I always try to distinguish between what I can prove and what I can't prove. That said, it's more than a little suspicious to see buildings just falling for no apparent reason, the way that everything happened. And I'll let all the others who've done analysis on it. But it seemed like as soon as that was done, there was an awful lot of stuff ready to push. And the argument that we needed to trade our freedoms for security really took a foothold then on a profound level. So we passed in 2005, along with, we got the Patriot Act, all these things, but we also passed the Real ID Act. And the Real ID Act was kind of understated at the time. And even moving forward to 2020, when Donald Trump signed the Real ID Modernization Act, which people don't realize. And now, in fairness to Trump, that was part of a larger bill, and it was not a standalone. And Trump does frequently try and push things through, and if there's a whole lot of garbage in with a few good things, right? I mean, that's the nature of politics. He views himself as a great negotiator, and that bill came into place. But the two together really set the groundwork for where we are now, which, to be real honest with you, people don't realize, but we really have the same sort of digital ID being implemented in this country that they just implemented in the UK that we're all screaming about.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, Tom. And the government rarely sells tyranny as tyranny. And it's not lost on me. And I think the point you're making is one that we were just talking about this morning before we came on, which is our government was a little wise to our perspective on a digital ID. So instead of calling it a digital ID, they decided to call it a real ID. So we believe that it's real. Yeah. Physical. How are they selling this both to the states and to the public?
Well, this is really insidious, and I see this firsthand, right? So I work in a lot of states with a lot of elected officials, and sometimes with federal elected officials, although I generally view that as fairly futile, because getting anything done in D.C. means you have to buy someone off, and I won't do that. The thing that they do is the lobbyists will come in. So, for example, there's been a new update that's been going around the country, and for the last couple of years has been getting passed state by state. And it's an update to something called the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code. It's a 200-page bill, give or take, depending on the state, and it's very complicated. Nobody understands it. And the elected officials look at this, and it updates banking law and regulations, right? So in a previous life, I was a compliance expert and did a lot of work and ran a credit union. So I was in banking. So I have a very, very strong knowledge and background in this. So you look at this 200-page bill, and on its face, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But when you see what it actually does, is it opens the door and facilitates digital currency. So you say, well, wait a second, what does that mean? Why is that an issue? Well, together with that, the Real ID Act and then the Genius Act, what you have is CBDCs. Now, we know what CBDCs are, central bank digital currencies. Now, here's the problem. Americans would never allow a true CBDC. It would never fly. So the WEF and its partner members, they rolled out a test trial of CBDCs a few years back in Nigeria. And the people rejected it so roundly that they had to pull it and start over. And they kind of came back with this new plan. And the new plan was, well, what about a public-private partnership for CBDCs? Allow BlackRock, allow JP Morgan, allow the big banks to control the digital currencies. And then we can lean on them, kind of like they leaned on Facebook for censorship. And then you've run into troubles, right? Because whereas if the federal government censors us, we can sue them under the First Amendment. Facebook gets away with it.
Yeah. And
so what's happening right now is we're seeing the chess pieces move in a similar way to what happened pre-COVID. We passed things pre-COVID. They passed Section 230 that allows groups like Facebook to essentially censor without repercussion, right? They can control their own content, which is good and bad. It would be good if we had any honest content providers, but we don't. The closest thing we have is X and Truth, and neither of them are completely transparent. Neither of them are completely good. Although I do like X generally. It's still a mess, though.
It is still a mess. I've noticed, Tom, that they seem to be recently. I think there is some activity of suppression on X. I mean, it seems pretty obvious now, but as a general rule, I think it is better.
It's a lot better, and I think Musk is moving it that way. I don't know what to make of him as an individual. I make no judgments on him as a human being, but good or bad. I just don't know. I don't have enough. There's evidence, but no proof, right? Certainly I don't love anybody wearing a Baphomet symbol, but I also do appreciate that he's moved generally towards free speech. So, he's a wild card, a wild card. But yeah, there's certainly, he had a new group of people that they just hired in Twitter, and the censorship seemed to explode right afterwards. I don't know. We'll see what's happening there. But the point being, though, that with COVID, what they did was they created laws, they put the pieces in place so that when COVID rolled out, we were censored, we were controlled, we were this, we were that, all the things that happened. Same sort of things here is happening with the CBDCs and the digital track and trace. So the Real ID Act, through a whole series of law and regulations, is essentially creating biometric digital database by which we can all be tracked, right? Anywhere there's a camera, they see your face, it's tracked against that database. Because remember, in the Modernization Act, it requires digital imagery. So when they take your picture, they get a digital image of you, and that digital image goes into a database that the states are required to share. Okay, so there's no federal database, but the states are required to share their databases. And their databases are shared through a public-private partnership. In that public-private partnership, that nonprofit that they share it through, well, guess what? Just suing them is going to be a little bit like suing Facebook. Good luck. There's all sorts of protections and options and ways to play that game. And so they've created a situation that's similar to the Fed, right? They've got the authority of the government, but no accountability.
Yeah, exactly. So, Tom, just to bear down on this for a second, it's just an easier play to sue the government because the constitutional protections exist to protect us against the government, not private organizations. So basically, they're getting a private nonprofit in this case to do their dirty work. They're essentially a quasi arm of the government, but they have some plausible deniability there.
Yeah, 100%. And I want you to think about the profundity of what you just said. It's easier to sue the federal government. Now, I can tell you I've sued the federal government a lot. And the thing is you're right. It is. It's easier. But I say that in light of the fact that, I remember one of the hearings I walked into on COVID, and it was me and one other attorney on our side. And on their side files in a team of, 7, 8 lawyers wearing suits more expensive than my car. And then they told the judge that there were another 20 attorneys on the phone listening in to advise them. So you think about when you say that, understand that when you sue the government, they have no budget because they print money. So they don't care how many attorneys. They have more top of their class Harvard graduate type attorneys just sitting there that they can pay endlessly to do whatever they want than any private. So when we say it's actually still easier to sue the government because there are constitutional protections than these private entities, understand how profound that is, because it's not easy to sue any of these people. So, what's happening though now is by doing this, they essentially create what, to coin a phrase, there's a case a long time, there's a wall against justice, right? Basically, there's no way to really to do much with this. And there won't be, because what they're going to do is they're going to give you the same sort of free choice that you had on COVID vaccines. You're going to see there are data privacy protections, and there's laws for data privacy protection, and some of those laws apply to this nonprofit. But here's the thing. If you want to participate in society, and you can draw your biblical reference there, if you want to participate in commerce, you're going to have to play the game. And you have to understand how important that is. When we say apply to participate in commerce, what's happening now is that digital ID and those cryptocurrencies that they're going to be creating with the Genius Act and through other mechanisms are going to be controlled by these private entities that are almost impossible to sue. They're going to say that if you want to participate in commerce with us, you're going to participate in our social credit score system. And you're going to do it, or you aren't going to be able to buy food or clothing or whatever it is you want to buy.
Travel, everything, right? Right now, they see how much more difficult it is. Yeah. You want to get on a plane, you get Real ID, right? You're going to waive your data privacy because they want an official ID for you to use the internet, to use this, to use that. Well, where do you get that official ID? Well, from the Real ID Act. Well, when you click all those okays and yeses and it's fines
When you first get your cell phone, you get this thing that says, "Hey, do you agree? Yep. Do you agree? Yep. Do you agree? Yep." When you do that, you're going to be waiving your privacy protection. So what's going to happen is that Real ID is going to have a verified legal biometric data on you. It's going to then be, you're going to then give protection or permission for this to use that ID and to have a legal document that it can tie it to. So a digital identifier, right? That's going to follow you everywhere. This has phones. This not only has a phone, but it has a camera. It listens to everything you say. Did you know that they put microphones and cameras in your TVs now? Just your television sitting at home. They have recording devices everywhere. They're putting cameras in cars so that when you're driving, the car can see. There'll be a little black box, kind of like an airplane, so that they can see what you are doing at any given time. By the way, have you noticed that all your new cars are connected to the internet all the time?
Yeah.
They can be turned on and off remotely, by the way. All of this stuff is coming together to create this true dystopian society where we are controlled right down to the air we breathe. It's going to be it's terrifying, and we're within 5 years. I hate, giving exact timeline predictions, because if I do my job well, it'll be longer. If I'm successful, if we're successful, if we fight back, then we prove me wrong, and it's more than 5 years. But within 5 years, things are going to be profoundly different. We're going to all have robots in our houses. Well, I don't know if I'm going to. I was actually just at a thing last week. They had one of the little robots there. I got to be honest with you, it's creepy.
Yeah.
I don't want that in my house. But you're going to they're going to be everywhere. You're going to have an AI digital assistant. And good luck functioning in society if you don't, because it'll just be a matter of competition.
So you're saying, Tom, that this is something that may not be this real ID that allows a window by big brother government and these nonprofits into basically every facet of our lives. Even if it's not explicitly required, they're going to make it so impossible to function in society if you don't have it, that most people are going to simply acquiesce and just do it.
Well, remember, you didn't have to take the vaccine. You could lose your job, your house, your livelihood, everything else. You could do that. That's fine. That was your choice.
But you don't have to. Yeah, but
you didn't have to.
You don't have to do it. Yeah.
Right. So we get the same sort of thing. And listen, I got to be honest with you guys. I think we're all fans. We're all MAGA. We all support this. And we want to love Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is ushering in the Great Reset at lightning speed. And I know that's going to upset people for me to say. But listen, we passed the Genius Act. We're implementing Real ID. We're now talking about 50-year mortgages. You know how they said you'll own nothing and you'll like it? Well, What's a 50-year mortgage? It's a 50-year rent. That means if I buy a house at 20, I don't pay it off till I'm 70. Most people will never own their homes. It's absurd. You're going to pay hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest on even a small home in a rural area. And I see online, well, you don't have to do it. Oh, you don't. Well, when BlackRock, through Blackstone and their other partners, owns all the property, and for you to buy a house, it's a 2,000 square foot is going to cost $500,000. You tell me how you're going to do that on your $100,000 a year salary. You tell me how you're going to manage that when grocery prices are what they are. This is a matter of controlling the economics of us across the board. Because they control the economics for all of our essentials, what ends up happening is you never make enough money to actually own anything. And this is how they're going to usher in what the WEF has been calling for a long time. You own nothing and you're grateful for it. Meanwhile, by the way, guess what else is coming? Universal basic income. And you say, well, how does that work? Well, you got to understand, we're talking about a very big picture here. So they've got control over your spending. They've got control over this, control over that. Meanwhile, also remember, I right now today can do the job of what it would have taken 5 lawyers. So 4 other lawyers are gone, not employed, because I don't need them, because AI is that effective. Now, I have to double check everything that I use AI on as a lawyer, but I'm still about 5x more efficient than I was just a year or two ago. That's going to continue. Now, for the people who say, well, don't worry, I'll get a trade job. Did you see the robots? The robots can do anything you can do and better. The combination of AI, robotics, and everything else, there will be very few human jobs that are necessary. The push for universal basic income will be the next, because you're going to have all these people that can't be employed. We have 3 million truck drivers in this country. They make good livings for their family. We have 3 factories now either built or are being built to create self-driving trucks. What happens to those 3 million truck drivers? So what happens is, and part of what's been recognized, and this I would say, I hate to go down this road, but people say, well, depopulation. Well, the World Economic Forum and a number of different people at the top have talked about openly. It used to be that for your economy to be strong, you had to have more people in your nation because that's more consumers. With AI, you need fewer people, right? Fewer people means less people who are unemployed, less people to take care of. And so now the push for smaller countries with more robotics, more AI, more automation is much more efficient, and there's a much higher wealth per capita because you've got fewer people to essentially take care of.
Tom, as you were talking, I was thinking about President Trump. And, I can't think of anyone who has been victimized more by an overreaching, tyrannical government, particularly the United States Justice Department. I mean, every facet of his life has been ripped apart. He was almost destroyed.
Almost killed.
Almost killed. It seems like he would be acutely aware of the dangers of what we're talking about here, perhaps more than anyone else. So it seems counterintuitive that he would be one of the facilitators of this impending tyranny. Do you have any thoughts on that and why he's not more sensitive to this?
Well, remember something. Donald Trump is running the largest organization on the planet. The U.S. government has power, control, authority over the whole world. It's one of the most incredible positions that you could even imagine. If you're the president of the United States, you literally have control over the entire world on some level. It doesn't mean that we rule the world, but we have influence, right? You cannot know everything. No one can know everything. Now, you asked me, and I talked a little bit about how about the complexity of these laws. Where I was going to go with that is really relevant here. So what will happen is I talk about that 200-page law on the UCC. Nobody understands it, right? So you get a lobbyist that comes in and tells some state senator, hey, I need you to sponsor this. We'll help you in your next campaign. What is it? It's just some basic updates to the UCC. What's the UCC? Uniform Commercial Code. This will just make it easier for us to do transactions. And, crypto will be more effective in your state. Trump loves crypto, so do it. Okay.
They brought something like this in Louisiana, Chris. Do you remember that? It was not last year, but it wasn't this year, but the year before. We need to look at that law.
Yeah.
I'm certain it's probably passed. It's passing all over. So the bill is complicated. Nobody understands it. But they tell you they need it, and it doesn't look like there's anything that's hugely offensive in it because it's complicated and you wouldn't see it. So unless you know what you're looking for, you say, well, that sounds great, right? Great. Crypto, it's kind of here to stay anyways. Might as well make it work. Okay. Same sort of thing applies. You go up the food chain further, you have bigger, more complex issues. Now, one of the things that I firmly disagree with, I support Trump. I've been on record repeatedly talking about his advisors being crooks. The DOJ is just absolutely abhorrent right now, in my opinion. But remember, Donald Trump is getting advice on very complex issues, and he's got to count on his advisors. No one can know everything, right? I've done immense work on COVID, geoengineering, everything MAHA. I've done immense work. I've got background in banking and IT. You ask me about, certain aspects of defense, or you ask me about certain aspects of HUD. I don't know anything about that. Yeah. No one knows everything. And I read about my research. I take in, at peak, I was doing about 10,000 pages of academic reading a month. It's up or down a little bit now because I have other things I'm doing as well. But I'm a voracious researcher and reader. I can't even come close. Now, Donald Trump has a whole country to run. He's not reading 10,000 pages a month. In fact, if you ever want to give Donald Trump a piece of paper, it has to be 1 page and bullet points if you want any chance of him reading it. Otherwise, he's handing it to someone else who's reading it for him and telling him what it says. That's the issue, right? So the person reading it for him and telling it what it says is the key here. Now, when you have a chief of staff, Susie Wiles, who I get in all sorts of trouble for bringing her up, but she still has not renounced her position at Mercury LLC. She was a managing partner there. Mercury LLC is a lobbying firm owned by Omnicom, which is a World Economic Forum partner. Mercury LLC has represented Pfizer, Gavi, Alibaba, you name it. The list of bad guys is long. That's his right hand. Everybody in Washington knows you can't get to Trump without going through Wiles. So, Trump is great at a lot of things, but the one thing he has never done well is discern who's good and who's bad around him. Mike Pence, Bill Barr, the list goes on, right? So we got Susie Wiles there, who, by the way, was working with and close to Pam Bondi. So when Matt Gaetz goes down, who do we get put in? Wiles' buddy, Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi has arrested and done something substantive with how many people? Listen, that's great that she's talking about Comey. By the way, the case that she filed is an absolute joke.
Yeah, very weak.
It's horrible. It's great that she's doing with Bolton, but guess what? Neither of them have any authority or anything going on at this point. Who cares? It's not going to change anything that's happening now. What's she doing about Schumer? What's she doing about George Soros? What is she doing about Bill Gates, who just had dinner at the White House? Or Anthony Bourla?
In other words, what is she doing, Tom, to fight against current exigencies right now?
Nothing. And don't tell me we haven't had time. Listen, I fought the Justice Department. I know what kind of resources they have. They could, and if you don't believe me, just think how fast they went after plain Americans on J6.
Yeah.
There has been plenty of time. There is no excuse. This is a desire not to go after the people that they need to be going after.
So let me lay this to rest then, Tom. Let me lay this to rest because I have been giving the Trump administration and the DOJ the benefit of the doubt for a long time, and I think that they deserved that.
They did.
I think they deserved a presumption in their favor for a period of time. But it's your view now, as a seasoned litigator, that the excuse that they have to prepare indictments, they have to do the investigations, they've got to make sure all their ducks are in a row. And I've given a full-throated defense of the administration on this issue for a long time now. But it's your position that there's no reason why they should not be proceeding with formal indictments at this point.
We're way past that point. And I'm going to tell you, Chris, listen, I gave everything I could to get Trump into office. I fought hard for him, and I still support the president. I'm wavering on my support of his administration. And the reason for that is they keep doing things. You can't invite Anthony Bourla to the White House when he should be arguably in jail or at least being charged with numerous crimes. Bill Gates, same thing. When we look at George Soros, they're finally talking about him. But for God's sakes, this isn't that complicated. At this point, just with the resources I have, without bringing in staff, without bringing in other people, you can just do some internet research. The internet, one thing that is wonderful on X is there's a lot of great researchers who provide a lot. You could just search X, spend some time on X. You could find the basis for a number of indictments, a number of different things that could be done, a number of different actions that could be taken. Certainly real investigations. But we're not doing any of this. There's none of this being done. Trump himself, he's doing a great job, but it's inconsequential. And what I mean by that is everything that Trump has succeeded in, he loves to feel good about it, and he should. He should be proud of his work. The peace deals, the trade negotiations, he's done wonderful on that. But the problem is his advisors are putting him in a situation where everything he's doing is meaningless because the day one of the next administration, all these things can be rolled back. All the executive orders can be rescinded. All the negotiations and deals can be rescinded. None of it matters. The only two things that Trump can do that will have a lasting effect are passing legislation, which he can't do because Congress sucks, or putting criminals in jail, which is the hallmark. That's the point of the executive branch, right?
Yeah.
Enforcement of our laws. But because Trump, he doesn't like lawyers, which I don't blame him. And he seems to have a tendency to hire, all his lawyers they seem to be more suited for looking at than doing anything. I don't know what the deal is with that. But, Bondi she's appalling to me. There is no excuse for what's happening in the Justice Department. There is no excuse. Think how quick we put people who were keying Teslas in jail.
Yeah.
But we never went after the people who were putting out the propaganda that facilitated it. We never went after the people who were funding this, funding that. How about J6? Right before the election, I put out a video. It got well over 1 million views, and it was pretty viral. And that's on Twitter alone. And by the way, that video laid out, a lady did this full investigation, deep dive, all this sort of stuff on J6. It was a Democrat scheme. It was the feds and the Democrats worked together, and it looks like AOC and a couple other people from the Democrat Party may have been involved in that. There's evidence. Why aren't they being investigated? But we won't do that. None of that's happening. We have a spineless Justice Department. And now you see things like this. And listen, I like Kash Patel. I like Bongino. But you see them, the Charlie Kirk murder. I don't know if you guys are shooters. I've shot since I was old enough to hold a gun. I've shot a 30-06 a lot. We had one growing up. I spent a lot of time shooting that gun. There is no man on this planet whose bones are going to stop a 30-06 like that. That was not what happened. I don't know what did happen, but I assure you that was not a 30-06. That was not a 30-06 hitting and then stopping by. A 30-06 is something you use to hunt a moose.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me. So what we're seeing is across the board. I wanted to give these guys the benefit of the doubt, and I have given it over and over and over again. But across the board, they just keep falling short. And how long do we do that? Because we're coming up on midterms. And unless something is done, unless there are some people in jail, unless there's some real action taken, we're going to have a Democrat majority. Right now, Maha's just sat out the election. Maha sat it out because they're tired of seeing Borla and Gates go to the White House. Maha's not happy.
Yeah.
Mega's not super happy because the economy's still wrecked. Now, I think the economy is going to improve because the budgets and the different things they passed under Biden were going to destroy the economy for Trump's first year, no matter what. I think year two, we'll start seeing the economy turn around, and thanks to Trump and his actions. Mega's still going to be a little fussy, and unless we get some accountability, Mega's going to stay fussy. And Maha, I'm sorry, but that Maha coalition, I argued hard. Maha was necessary to put Trump over the top. They're sitting it out. We're mad right now because he ain't doing what he said.
What do you think, Tom, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? I get the sense, and I don't have any empirical data to support this, but I get the sense that RFK Jr. himself is frustrated with regard to the things that he truly wants to do. I think in many respects, he's a real patriot. I think he has great courage. And I think there are a lot of things that he would like to be doing, but I think that he's being hamstrung. What do you think about that?
And Senator Kennedy is the one hamstringing him in a lot of ways, I believe.
Well, and Cassidy.
Cassidy, that's the one I meant.
Cassidy and Susie Wiles, chief of staff, who, again, her organization represented Pfizer and Gavi and Bill Gates. She's tied to them. Is it a surprise to see Bill Gates in the White House when the organization that she worked for represented Gavi?
It just seems like how can someone be so obtuse to the optics of that, Tom? There's no one who's more vilified in MAGA, the base of conservatism in America than Bill Gates. And he's showing up, at the White House. You would think that they would have better optics than that.
Yeah, you would, but not if they don't care. So this is the thing. What you're telling me, what you're saying to me is why this doesn't make sense. And that's my point.
Yeah.
We have to look at the evidence, right? At the end of the day, one of the hardest things that I have to do, because I want to be excited about everything and I want to be the biggest fan of the Trump administration. I want to be, we're winning. This is what we voted for. I want to do that. But my job is not to be a fan. My job is to look at the actual evidence, to follow it where it goes, and then to stay grounded in the truth. And the truth of the matter is, we are not putting people in jail that should be in jail. We are not getting things done that should be done. And some of the optics of what we're doing are appalling. I mean, it is absolutely appalling. We're pushing this AI, we're pushing all these things. And the truth of the matter is, if you listen, now we have no choice on the AI, right? The AI is the current arms race. If America doesn't win it, we lose everything. I mean, it's bigger than nukes. We had the Cold War, the nuclear arms race. The new arms race is AI. If we don't win that, now the problem is even if we do win it, humanity may still lose. It doesn't matter who wins it, because we're going to try and control something smarter than us, which good luck on that, right?
Yeah.
At some point, we're going to just be going to God for intervention.
Frankenstein saga. You create something that becomes stronger than you.
That's where we're at. But, nobody's talking about what are we going to do when there's no need for human jobs. And I got to tell you, MAGA right now, there's a good portion of MAGA that's been lied to and told, don't worry, just get a trade job. The robots can't plumb. Well, wait a second. Have you seen Elon Musk's robots? They literally have opposable thumbs. They have digits. They can do anything a human can do. Not yet, but within the next few years, there is not a job that a person can do that they can't recreate. There won't be anything. The only things that humans will still be useful for are jobs where human error counts. Arts. I never thought that a pottery major was something my kid should look at. But if the thing about it is, the flaws that make something human are one of the few things that we will still have to hold on to, because the bots, the AI, it's going to do it better than us. We have a situation where we're losing. We're losing on every level. And I don't think that Trump is trying to do it himself, but he surrounded himself with sellouts and crooks, just like he did the first administration. And not all of them. There's some great people around him. There's some people. I love Bobby. I think Bobby's doing great. But Bobby, we all know where Bobby is on mRNA. We all know where he is on vaccines. Yeah. He's been speaking on it for decades. But now he's there. Why can't he do what he needs to do? Why can't we follow the science?
That's the question so many people are asking, Tom. That's the question so many people are asking.
You know that I got more blowback. So back in, I think it was either March or May, somewhere around there of 2024, so in the campaign, I went on and I broke the news about Susie Wiles, because she was the campaign lead, and now she's chief of staff. And I broke the news that she was tied in with Pfizer and Gavi and all these different things, all these shady connections she has, right? And I broke that news, and I went on with Alex Jones. I went on, and I will tell you, I got more blowback from doing that than I did when I went to Congress and talked about the DMED data, or when I went to Congress and talked about the verified medical records I had of a soldier who received the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine in 2015. I got more blowback. I mean, it was mind-blowing, because I don't know if Trump knows he's been surrounded by snakes. I don't know if he knows what's going on. But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is some of these policies are indisputably bad for MAGA and bad for MAHA and bad for the country. Digital ID is not something anybody wants.
Yeah.
We have to ask who's doing it, who's responsible for it. Donald Trump's at the head of the ship, so he's ultimately got to figure it out. But until he's willing to start firing some people and doing some things differently, but instead, we're putting out things like, hey, we got digital ID now. How about a 50-year mortgage so that we can, you never own anything ever?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's
Tom,
just
how are we supposed to be asserting personal sovereignty right now in this environment, right? Like, what steps are you doing personally to protect yourself from this oncoming train?
What we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, everybody wants, how do I save myself? Don't. You act now. Because if it's fully implemented, you can't fight back. You can't win. There's nothing you can do. The system is going to be structured where if you want to participate in the system, if you want to go to the grocery store, if you want to have a bank, if you want to look at China. Okay, so look at where China is. If your social credit score falls too low, you lose your home. you lose everything. You lose your job. And that's just the way it is. Now,
What
If you were
about
Tom,
Bitcoin?
Bitcoin,
what's
yeah,
that?
Bitcoin.
Yeah, what about Bitcoin?
Listen, crypto's coming. I personally think, and for me, you might as well invest in it because it's coming and it's going to be one of the few things that you can actually use. Digital ID is coming. You might as well understand that you're going to need a little bit of it if you want to feed your family. So, I mean, I'm okay. I don't have an issue with investing in it because there's nothing we can do about it. But while you're doing that, we need to do everything we can to fight against this future, right? I don't know that we can stop it. So
What
you
would
want to
you
hedge
do,
your
Tom?
bets.
What would you do if you were a state senator or a state representative in the state of Louisiana right now, or any other state in the country? What type of legislation would you author and push to protect the citizens of your state against this?
I would do the Human Jobs Protection Act, which is something that I came up with. I haven't actually put out the model legislation, but I think that we need to protect human jobs. I will tell you, on our side of the political aisle, a lot of people are very averse to unions, right? Because the unions typically support the left, and the unions do typically have a lot of corruption. But I will tell you, unions are going to be crucial, because the longshoremen's unions are the reason that we still have human jobs working on the docks. They could replace all of that with robots, and the only reason they haven't is because of the strength of the unions. Unions are going to be a very important thing. Anything that unites people. Now we need to we need to take some steps on the unions. I know that. Listen, you got a patriot conservative guy like me coming on, and you hear me saying Trump's making mistakes. We need to support unions. The world's upside down.
It just is upside down.
But it is. And what's going to happen is the traditional historical alliances are about to be upended. What's happened is that a lot of what's going on is not Democrat or Republican. It's billionaires controlling uniparty versus we the people. And anywhere that we the people can unite is going to be critical. There's a reason that Charlie Kirk was able to reach people who would be just completely on the other side of the aisle. Last week, I was in Arizona, and I sat down, and I spent probably an hour talking to a young lady who, get this, she was a filmmaker whose films focused on social justice issues for millennial women. Now, can you imagine a guy like me having a conversation? Because you all know what I think. I mean, I'm not real shy about it, right? But we had a great conversation. You know what we came together on? Neither of us supported or liked the idea of universal track and trace. Nobody likes us. There are certain human issues that aren't right or left. They're just human. And we're going to have to come together because those are the most foundational issues. And what's happening right now is the right-left divide is being used as a distraction, right? It's a major distraction. I'm not saying that tax issues, this and other, are unimportant. I'm saying that they're only relevant for a short period of time because everything's about to change. In 5 years, our kids won't recognize the world we live in. You and I, people like us, I mean, Danielle, you're only 25, but Chris and I, you got a few years, we're not going to recognize the world that we're in. It's really something that's shifted tremendously, and it's about to shift a lot more. When you think about, I work from my home most of the time now. I don't need to go to an office. 10 years ago, that's unthinkable. If I need to write a document, I'm looking at what prompting I'm going to use for AI and then reviewing the document rather than doing an additional draft myself because it's much faster. I mean, my research is done differently. Everything I do is done differently. That's going to be times 10, times 50, times 100 in the next few years. And nobody's preparing for it. Nobody's thinking about it. We're ushering in Palantir, coming in. Palantir, who worked with the CIA, who created Total Information Awareness Program, shut down by Congress because they were so unpopular. Well, Trump is bringing them in now to modernize the government. Do you think that the CIA guys that were trying to spy on everybody on the planet suddenly became good guys? Do we really trust that? Does anybody want that? But we're not talking about it. Instead, we're talking about, the people that are, protesting no kings or protesting this or protesting that. And on the left, hey, you've got to oppose Donald Trump because he's taking away our freedoms. I mean, this is all for show while the critical things that are happening are being overlooked. Nobody knows about the Real ID Act. Nobody knows the depth of the issues that creates. Nobody knows that the Genius Act wasn't just about, oh, well, I kind of like crypto. That's neat. Let's do it. No, it was about creating a public-private partnership for CBDCs. Nobody knows. We're only now starting to hear the truth that I talked about 4 or 5 years ago, that these mRNA vaccines were really about messing with our genetics. They were controlling our genetics. That's what that was always about. That's why the SV40 and SV40 promoters are in them. That's why Pfizer did a bait and switch. And instead of the approved vaccine being what they put out this other thing with all these poisons in it. We're going to find out more about that, by the way, too. And P.S., have you seen, just today I saw, we're moving away from global warming into global health. Why? Because that's something they can scare you with. That was always part of the plan. When 90% of the people received this vaccine and everybody's dying from it, they were going to say, well, it was a more zoonotic spillover, it's climate change. Well, they just shifted. They're just going to say, look at all these health problems. Look at this. I saw a study trying to figure out why more young people are having heart attacks. Geez, I wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is also, we've all this smoke and mirrors, while the critical things that will truly control humanity continue marching on.
Have you had a harder time getting people activated since President Trump came in? Because, you think about whenever the tyranny was staring us in the face and we all felt it, we all saw it, we were shut in our homes, it wasn't as hard to get people to say, hey, I need to stand up, I need to do something. Maybe I'll go to the legislature, maybe I'll send an email even. But now, are people holding back because they're like, well, we're going to trust the plan?
Well, let me ask you this. If Joe Biden started nationalizing businesses by taking ownership stakes in big oil, how would you have felt? We did that. We're doing that. Trump's taking ownership stakes in a bunch of different big companies.
Yeah.
We're nationalizing. It's literally socialism, but no one's talking about it because it's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Listen, I like Trump, but what he's doing is not MAGA. We are moving the Great Reset pieces, and understand, the Great Reset is not historical socialism. It's not historical anything. It's new, but it's worse. Just because it's not traditional fascism or traditional socialism or traditional communism doesn't mean that it's not a new version, and that's precisely what it is.
And
It's a new version.
Tom, perhaps the chief reason why it's so sinister is that it involves this merger between private entities and the government. So for some people, it's harder to detect because private corporations are as knee deep in it and they're working hand in hand with the government to do these things.
One of the most difficult things to educate people and activate them on are some of these new laws, because I've got a thread, and it's pinned to the top of my Twitter profile on the Real ID Act right now. That thread is, let me look over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 different tweets, all explaining how the Real ID Act essentially creates this universal track and trace. If you pass a law that says CBDCs are money, well, that's one sentence. So I can get that out in a TikTok video or an Instagram. If I have to post 10, 15 threads, post thread, that's much harder. And think about this.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a 10 or 15 post thread. Now, if I have to actually explain something, good luck. Everybody just thinks good guy, bad guy, black, white, Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. What they don't understand is that the billionaires pushing the legislation don't care whether you're a D or an R. They don't care one bit. They back both sides. They're billionaires. They have more money than they could lose in 3 lifetimes. $1 million to back this senator or this congressman means nothing to them. It's pocket change. So they're backing both sides, and they're controlling the narrative. While we're all thinking that we're fighting left and right, they're just moving right down the road with no opposition because both parties are agreeing. That's what's going on here behind the scenes. And there is nobody standing up for we the people.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Tom. Is there anybody on the national level, and maybe Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, they seem to deviate much more often from the prevailing narrative on a number of issues, and they're getting hammered by the Trump administration for doing so. And I find myself agreeing with them often in their positions. How would you characterize their public position on these things?
Is honest. I mean, this is the problem. They don't want people who are honest. They don't want people who are telling the truth. I mean, these are common sense things. Why would we spend $20 billion on beef from Argentina instead of $20 billion on ranchers for America? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Argentina. Let's support them. That's fine. But how about we support our ranchers first, right? How about you cut $20 billion from some of the Doge waste that they found and use that to support Argentina directly and let us just support our ranchers, right? I mean, this isn't complicated, right? We're wasting hundreds of billions of dollars a year, just absolute waste, things that nobody would want to spend money on. So if you want to support Argentina, just send them a check for whatever, but take the 20 billion and put it towards our ranchers. Let's support our ranchers. But you see, one of the things that's happening, and this is really, really important and foundational, they could fix beef prices, but they'd have to break the monopoly. There's four processors that control 85% of the beef processing in this country. 4. Why don't we break up that conglomerate? Well, that conglomerate, all 4 of those guys have BlackRock, and by the way, BlackRock CEO is now the head of the WEF. BlackRock has a major, Vanguard, these guys have major stakes in all this. They control the Democrats and the Republicans. They control both sides. Right now, the greatest threat to our country is the explosion and implosion of small and private business, the lack of competition, because what happens and where we're going is you're going to have a few major corporations that control all the different sectors, all the different industrial and especially necessities, health, food, shelter. You get a few different groups that are going to control all of that. And they're consolidating their power. Obamacare, what was Obamacare? Well, it did 2 things. It eliminated private doctors. There's no more independence. And it allowed electronic medical records. Those 2 things are the reason we had COVID. There was no COVID pandemic without those 2 things. Because if you have private doctors, they would all use ivermectin, Fenben, things like that, and everybody would have been fine. Ivermectin HCQ, and there would have been no problem. Without the EMRs, they couldn't coordinate the hospital murder protocols across the world. Now, why can't we roll back Obamacare? MTG was just asking, why can't, if we can't have insurance exploding on people. And because she didn't want insurance costs exploding, and she said, hey, we need to have a plan, she's now getting attacked. Well, I agree with her.
Yeah.
I agree with her. But there's no plan. We're not going to roll back Obamacare because if we do that, that breaks down the monopolies. It breaks down, and it's much harder to control a whole bunch of independents than it is to control a few major corporations that say, hey, by the way, if you work for us, you behave this way. And if you want to do business with us, your social credit score has to be. There will be a social credit score, a number of them in this country. Mark my words, over the next few years, you'll start seeing it take hold. It's coming, and it will be facilitated thanks to your ability to be tracked and traced, thanks to Real ID, thanks to the digitalization, what's going on, and they will allow programmable currency, which the new UCC acts, the Genius acts, all these different things are collectively going to do. Those programmable currencies will be issued by private entities. So when they discriminate against you based on viewpoint, based on this, based on that, they're going to have constitutional protections because a business did it, not the government. And we're going there. So, I mean, at the end of the day, now is the time for people to fight back. And the most important question you asked today was, what are people doing? Well, they're sleeping. They think Trump's saving them. And I'm not saying Trump himself is a bad guy, but he's got enough snakes around him. And there's enough snakes in Congress that it doesn't really matter. We're still losing the narrative. While we're all worried about these irrelevant issues, I'm not saying they're not important issues, but in comparison to what's happening with the AI, digital currency, digital track and trace, social credit scores, universal medicine, gene therapy drugs, they just pale in comparison. Right?
Yeah. Tom, if you were king for a day, who in the Trump administration right now would you get rid of, and who would you replace him with?
The entire DOJ would be gone for day one, the entire DOJ. I'd start over. And I mean, that's a long list of people I would have to replace them with. I know quite a few good lawyers, but they would all be probably people you've never heard of, people who I know you couldn't buy. The one thing I suggested to the Trump people when they were kind of moving into this, I said, if you care about America and if you actually want to get anything done, Trump needs a team of about 5 or 6 people that are essentially Elliot Ness untouchables, right? To go back to if you understand the mobster reference.
Yeah.
You need a group of people who cannot be bought, who have no authority to do anything other than to vet the people around Trump and make sure that they're honest and trustworthy and truthful. Without that, there's no way, because there's no way that you can, even with the vetting that's required to get the positions, it's not enough. You've got to make sure that the people doing that vetting are honest and trustworthy. I mean, you need a team of people who are untouchable with authority to dig into everything. That's the only way, but that's not, it never happened. There's a few people around there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, there's some people I would like to see more involved with administration, but they're not. But I think the number one issue we got to do is the DOJ, because remember, the executive branch's job is to enforce the law. Without the DOJ functioning, that's the one place that they can do the most. The second spot I would go is defense. I like Hegseth, but I mean, under him, Obama and Biden spent years putting snakes in all over the place. There needs to be a major house cleaning there, and I think all the intelligence agencies, everything under Tulsi, they need a major overhaul as well.
Yeah. Do you think Brennan and those guys are going to be indicted?
I don't think it matters. I mean, what I saw with Comey is that it doesn't matter. What I saw, I mean, the joke that they filed. Listen, Bondi threw the case against Diddy. Okay, you got someone. I mean, she's on video beating the hell out of that woman. I mean, that guy is a monster, and apparently Trump's considering whether to pardon him. I mean, he literally is on video punching that woman and dragging her by the hair. I mean, whatever else he did, that enough is an issue. But she threw the case, right? She threw the case. The Epstein stuff, truckloads of data. Where is that, by the way? What, we're supposed to believe that it's not there? Listen, let's be real honest here. Pam Bondi was the AG while Epstein was doing what he did at Palm Beach. Okay, she could have stopped him then, but didn't. She didn't want to stop him, or someone told her not to stop him. Whatever happened, I mean, this just looks like they didn't want to embarrass our allies who had access to the spy information.
Yeah,
the information they're using, and to the politicians that were out doing things with kids that should result in them being castrated. I mean, and that's my position. If you're a child molester, you should be castrated. You can argue with me. That's my opinion on it. It just, you don't do that. But instead, we're covering for people. We're hiding
the quislings, Tom. The quislings that are surrounding President Trump. We've heard that there are a number of them who are compromised. Perhaps there's information about them that they don't want disclosed, and so they're basically being blackmailed. To what extent is move toward this surveillance state through the Real ID and the other things you've discussed, are they motivated by a real philosophical commitment to this, or are they being controlled by other people and they're just afraid to do the right thing because of what could come out about them?
I don't think there's any question that they're being controlled. I mean, who's philosophically aligned with the idea that you should be able to be tracked and traced everywhere you do and with everything you do?
So who are the prime movers in this, Tom? The prime movers, the ones who have this vision genuinely for the world and for society.
Well, I mean, you got the globalist billionaire tech crowd who are really most foundational to it, right? I mean, like I said, Palantir is a disaster. I mean, they're behind total information awareness. They were behind all this. I mean, that's a disastrous company. Bill Gates, I mean, look at what he's done. I mean, we just saw Microsoft, is in bed with the CCP. Google, I mean, you see where they are. It's the tech billionaires are seeing where the AI is going and what it can do, and they're essentially trying to consolidate power, right? Are any of them good? Probably. How do you distinguish? That's the question, right?
Right.
So you get the tech billionaires, you got the bio billionaires, right? But at the end of the day, the tech guys are going to run the show, because all the stuff that Pfizer and Boral and these guys come up with, that can, they can use that for certain things, but that's all going to be developed by the tech and the AI that's being, that's at the top of the food chain, right? The AI systems and stuff. And remember, the first commercially available or useful AI that came out was the AI used by BlackRock. It came out in the mid 90s. So that AI has been learning about us and studying us since the mid 90s. Can you imagine how advanced that is? Can you imagine, with 30 years of learning and studying every financial transaction that it can look at and all the things it looks at, how much it knows about humanity?
You're so right, especially since what they have allowed us to use gives us an inkling into how advanced what we don't know is.
Well, yeah, we're using the garbage that we're allowed to use, right?
Yeah.
I can't get ChatGPT to give me a correct citation. These guys are using stuff that's predicting financial transactions, and they can't lose, right? Because they control everything's controlled through the AI. The law does not facilitate any sort of control over the AI systems. The law is way underdeveloped. And so there's all sorts of unfair trade advantages and things that are happening because of that. That is manifest. Who's close to BlackRock? Nobody. And Vanguard does well, but guess what? Vanguard has access to BlackRock's AI. So, if you've got the AI, you know everything, you control the world. If you don't, you don't. And the AI that we get to use is the low-level stuff that's left.
Tom, go ahead, Danielle. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I wanted to make sure we get you out in time for your meeting. I know that you have to run soon.
Well, I do, but this is really important. I'm grateful that we're getting the opportunity to get some of this out there, because it's a longer form interview, and I've gotten to really share a lot of stuff, and it's complicated.
Well, it's extraordinarily deep and interesting as well. But what about this, Tom? We do a lot of, that's primarily what my organization, LACAG, Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, does. We oppose bad legislation, and we push hard for good legislation, and we monitor everything that happens in the Louisiana State Legislature, and we report it to the public. We're a watchdog group here. And so I wanted to ask you, other than the legislation that you talked about earlier, protect human jobs in Louisiana, the legislatures do have the constitutional authority, plenary authority, in fact, to address these issues on the state level.
Yes.
And so, first of all, I wanted you to affirm whether that's the case. And secondly, what other legislation do you think are vitally important for us to push in this next session? And, more broadly, I guess every state should be doing.
Well, that's a very big answer, but I will tell you this. I didn't realize that you had that, but will be happy to work with you to get some legislation out there and to support it. There's a number of things we can do. For example, it's this broad and this dangerous. I'm working on, do you know what medical kidnapping is?
Is that the California where are they transing your kids, or it's worse? It's something else.
It's more broad than that. So medical kidnapping is when you decide that you don't want to treat your child with some sort of a traditional approach. So let's say there's a child in Oklahoma who mom gave him the traditional chemo, has leukemia, gave the traditional this, traditional that, didn't work. The kid was just miserable and horrible and doing horrible. She takes him off of it, puts him on natural treatment, through a naturopath. Well, Oklahoma doesn't recognize naturopathy. But a year later, the kid's doing great. He's out mowing the lawn, right? Doing well. Child Services says, well, but wait a second, you're not giving him chemo. So they kidnap your kid. They say it's medical neglect. They do it without any warning. They have an ex parte TRO hearing, which means that you don't even know they go to the judge. You just know that they show up and say, you're going to give us your kid or we're going to take your kid. And that's that. Then you're guilty until proven innocent, and you have to fight to get your kid back. This is something that could apply to vaccines, right? Texas just passed Proposition 15, parental rights. That sounds great, right? except for the way it was written opens the door for them to say, well, if you don't vaccinate your kid, we're going to take your kid. Well, I don't want my kid to get vaccinated after what I know about the vaccine. So we can do things to protect kids. There's legislation that we can do to protect human jobs, human this, human that. There's legislation we can do to ensure the ability to transact outside of the system. There's things that we can do. There's a bunch of things that we can do.
Well, we're going to be in touch with you, Tom, to work on these things because, Louisiana citizens, if they were aware of some of the things that we're talking about here, I guarantee you they would be strongly, strongly supportive of legislation to address it here. And I think that much of this can and should be addressed on the state level. And it's vitally important that it be done.
It's our only hope. The 10th Amendment gives us a lot of flexibility. And so we need to leverage that. And the 10th Amendment's held pretty strong in the SCOTUS. So we're still in a good spot there. There's things we can do, but we just have to have elected officials with the courage to stand behind some very difficult legislation. And then it has to be done differently, right? No 100-page bills with 50 riders on it.
Amen.
So I consult on this. So people say, well, what do you do, Renz? Well, you got to understand something. When you say we need to change things, I can't change the law in a courtroom. That's not how it's supposed to work. It happens, but legally and morally, it's unethical. The courtroom is where I go to try and ensure that the law is properly interpreted. We change the law in the legislature. So we do that by me working with elected officials, helping them draft legislation, helping them to put together effective legislation that will move the ball down the field, and then leveraging public support to push that legislation. That's a big part of what I do. I'm behind the scenes on a lot of stuff. I'm happy to help you guys down there do that. I do that all over the place. It's part of what I do, and it's an important thing because we need legislation, not just courtrooms. Because we've also seen, remember, even if I get a big win in a court, the next crooked judge can overturn it.
Right.
And there are crooked judges. So if we pass a law, that's helpful. Yeah. Right. So yeah, we need to do that. And if you've got an organization that's willing to do that, then we need to work together to try and get that done as fast as possible. There's a lot of stuff we can do in Louisiana, a lot of stuff. And I think it'd be
last question, Tom, last question on this. 2 or 3 years ago, we helped pass a resolution, a joint resolution. It wasn't a statute, but it's a resolution affirming Louisiana's solemn right to nullify any federal action that we concluded was unconstitutional, violated the Constitution, violated 10th Amendment sovereignty. To what extent, apart from passing affirmative legislation here on these issues, nullification of any federal action that is tyrannical or unconstitutional, nullification on the state level?
That's super interesting, and I would have to look at the language of that, but I might be able to do some magic with that. I would love to look at that. I'd love to see what you got. And the thing that makes my work effective is when I find local partners. By local, I don't mean small. I mean a big statewide organization, right? I just mean local to that state who I can work with and who can point me to things like that. So what I would love to do is take a look at that nullification law, see what it is, and see how it might be applied and what we can do to push it. There are a number of things that we ought to be looking at. And if we can get them to nullify a major bad action, that could create a political storm on a national scale that was phenomenally important. Phenomenally important.
Absolutely. No question. And it's been done, Tom, it's been done before. The federal marijuana laws were nullified by a lot of the states. More distantly, the Fugitive Slave Law Act during slavery was nullified by states. So there is precedent for it, but we just have to make sure that we are strong, as we talked about, on the state level to fight back against these things. I know I said last question, but I have to ask you this. Do you expect Bondi's DOJ to change course at all, to become stronger, to begin to do what needs to be done to hold these people accountable?
I think we're going to see some show stuff, some stuff to gain PR and to gain some positive press as we get closer to the midterms. The problem is at this point, I've seen them throw cases, I've seen them file joke cases, I've seen them talk a good game, but they haven't came through on anything. So I'll be honest with you, at this point, there's nothing they could do that I would believe until I saw it actually come to fruition, right? So I would expect that you'll see some serious investigations or charges filed just before the midterms for political purposes. But whether or not they're real, until I see Bill Gates in handcuffs, I don't care. Until I see Anthony, Fauci's not big enough. I want him in handcuffs, but I want his bosses in handcuffs. Until I see George Soros perp walked, until I see Anthony Bourla being taken out of his next White House meeting in Orange, till that's happening, I don't really care what she says, because she's had plenty of time to say everything she wants. I mean, God knows you can't turn Fox News on without seeing her. So, maybe she needs to be doing something substantive instead of just, out there telling everybody what she's doing. So,
yeah. And thank you for laying to rest, Tom, because I was becoming increasingly skeptical myself. But thank you for laying to rest the idea that they need more time to investigate or prepare indictments. That there is no excuses left at this point. That's
think about this. Think about this. I created a case that I believe could pierce through the immunity that we could use to file a lawsuit on the vaccines against Pfizer. I created several years ago. My cost to file that case, because you have to pay for experts, you have to pay for the full-time attorneys that are focused on it and everything else. My cost to file that case is about $6 million. So that's several years ago, and I have not been able to get the funding to do that for several years. Think how many people want that case.
Yeah.
The DOJ spends $6 million in about 13 seconds without batting an eye. If you gave me 1/10,000th of the resources of the DOJ, I'd save this world. There's just no way, they just won't do it because they can't control me. Guys like me are not buy it. You can't be bought. So the resources she has at her command are so vast that it's hard to even fathom. It is not just inexcusable, it is appalling and abhorrent to see what they're doing, and to suggest that they can't do it. Well, they seem to find a way to go after every mom, dad, brother, sister that spoke out at a school board meeting.
That's right.
They seem to find the resources to go after anybody who was within 10,000 miles of J6. They seem to find the resources to ensure that people like the electors in Arizona harassed the way that they were until Trump pardoned them today. God bless him for that. I mean, there's no question that if they had the political will to do so, they could investigate the heads of the snake. And we all know who they are. The evidence, and I'm talking about evidence that as a lawyer I can look at and say, yep, this would qualify. The evidence is there. The RICO cases should be flying. Now, a RICO case is complicated and they can take a minute. But the amount of evidence available, I mean, it's profound. There's so much. It's not that hard. I can do a Grok search and provide enough evidence to form the basis for a lot of different things. If I can do with a Grok search, tell me how the FBI, the premier law enforcement agency in this planet, can't seem to find a way to investigate George Soros properly. Why can I do it with the resources I have at home?
By the way, Tom, the guy who has funded the placement and the election of district attorneys all over the country, including my home parish of Caddo Parish up in Shreveport. It's extraordinary the extent to which he plays and operates in local and state politics. It's not just on the federal level.
Yeah.
You know,
it's listen, we all know who's doing what.
Yeah.
How is it that us three can sit on our podcast here and we know what's going on, but the DOJ, with their billions of dollars a year of resources, can't find the funding to do something with it or the resources to do it? It's absolute tripe, and it's wishful thinking. And you know what it is? It comes down to this. For those of us that have been fighting, I started fighting hard in 2020 when they locked us down. And I gave everything, 24/7. I've lost everything a man can lose to this fight, and I'm still fighting. I'm tired. I'm beat up. I'm emotionally spent on any given day. I've seen things that I wish I could unsee in profound ways. I wish to God I could go back to sleep and not know what's happening. But I wouldn't do it anyways, because if I did, my kids would suffer. Yeah. We're tired. We, the freedom fighters, the warriors, were exhausted, and we don't want to do it anymore. And we prayed for a savior to come in and do it for us. And Trump looked like that guy, and he's doing great things, but he's not doing what needs to be done. And the people around him are doing exactly what they want to do. But he's one guy. Unless he's got the right people around him, there's no chance. So at some point, we got to say, Trump, are you going to put the right people around you, or are you going to continue to facilitate this great reset garbage? The 50-year mortgage just made me blow a gasket. That was like the final straw, because it's the World Economic Forum. You'll own nothing and you'll be grateful for it. You will never own your house if you have to have a 50-year mortgage. You'll never own it. The banks get richer, the bankers get richer, the people, the middle-class Americans own nothing, and they'll be grateful for it.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think they can get Tina Peters out of jail?
They could. They won't.
By doing what? By doing what at this point?
Well, so he can't pardon her. It's state law. You could, listen, look what they're doing to Letitia James, okay? Look what they're doing. You just look at the corruption. There's a ton of evidence of corruption in and around what happened to Tina Peters. We sick our investigators on that. We start looking at that, and these Colorado folks got to look at jail time on the federal level. I'm guessing they'll back down a little bit.
But if you look at the basis that they pardoned the electors, they were put on state charges, I believe, but it was a federal pardon. So I'm wondering if there is a way for them to use that same basis for Tina.
I haven't had a chance to look at what they did with the state elections.
I just think that I just asked you about that, Tom, because I think it's an absolute disgrace that this 70-year-old Gold Star mother is still sitting in a jail cell.
She's a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
Wonderful woman. She's just a magnificent human being. It's one of the most egregious miscarriages of justice I've ever seen. This woman doing her duty to try and prevent election fraud ends up in jail on trumped up garbage charges. I mean, this is appalling. And the fact that Donald Trump is not doing anything about it is just abhorrent. And I don't know whether he's just blindly following the idiots at the DOJ or not. But you know what? You're the president. You know about this situation. You've spoken about this situation. Make it happen. Or fire somebody and find someone that can. You're fired was his battle cry during the first term. Now he won't fire anybody ever, and he needs to be firing some people. So I mean, it's just, I don't think people are disposable. I don't think he went too far firing everybody all the time, but I also think that you got to be willing to fire. There's a happy medium, right, between never firing and right now we have it's self-evident that the DOJ is a failure.
You just get your wings and go to become an ambassador.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. It's just a bonus. Or, well, if you're the Capitol Police pipe bomber, you just get promoted to the CIA. I guess she didn't get fired. She just got promoted.
Yeah.
But
well,
I mean,
Tom,
listen.
I just wanted to tell you on the point you made about being, emotionally exhausted. I can tell you that firsthand knowledge that there are countless numbers of people, not only in Louisiana, but throughout the country, who are inspired by your efforts and are motivated each day to get up and work hard and try to win because of you. And it's very important that you know that your work is not for naught. There are many people who are doing what we're doing throughout the country because of your example and your courage. And don't ever forget that, sir.
I mean, I mean this very sincerely when I say to you that that's a great honor to me. At the end of the day, you get up every day and you do what you do. You don't get to, you have to sacrifice. Before COVID hit, I didn't miss a soccer practice. Now I go, a week at a time without seeing my kids. And if I don't do it, no one's doing some of the stuff that I do. So I have no choice. And I've tried to say, let's do less of it, but then nobody does it. And there's more need than what I can fulfill. That's always a thing. But if I'm not doing it, the problem is I look over here in my wall and I got 2 pictures of my boys as babies. And I always keep that there. And I love that being there because, that's, if I quit, that's who I'm failing, right? That's who I'm failing. Now I promised God I'd fight. And so I won't break that promise. But if I did, that's who I'd be failing. I'd be failing God because I made a promise. I'd be failing them because that's their future. So, I hope you know that that's really meaningful. I appreciate that. I pray to God that people will hear what we said. We talked about a very, very complex, very difficult plan to understand. It's controversial. Nobody wants me saying anything that could ever come out badly for Trump. But at the end of the day, my job isn't to be a fan of Donald Trump or anybody else. It's to preserve the future for our children.
And
That's
to speak
what I
the
fight
truth.
for.
And to speak the truth, which
Before
is
God and
what you're
before
doing.
man.
Yeah.
I'm not a perfect man, but I promise God that I'd do this fight to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And I fail as a man all the time. I'm not a perfect man. I'm a sinner. But I will tell you that I have given everything I have to this fight. And with regards to my work, I have not deviated 1 inch from that promise, nor will I.
Amen. Well, God
God
bless you,
bless you,
Tom,
man.
and thank you for all that you're doing. We love to have you back and continue the conversation because you're just such a gift and your
Thank you.
knowledge base is so deep. We really appreciate you.
And look
Well,
forward, Tom, to working with you on legislation. I'm very, very excited about that.
I was serious about that. So let's make sure the person you chat with the book, that's my right hand. So I want to follow up on this. I'd like to do a follow-up meeting and see what we can do, because we save our country one state at a time. And sometimes a single beacon of hope is all we need to ignite, to spark a fire.
Yes. And we're not going to, Tom, put more work on you. Believe me, we're going to do the work. We're fighters and we're winners. And we'll look to you as a resource and as a guide, but a valuable guide, but we're not going to be asking you to do too much. I can promise you, because I know you have a lot on your plate, but I can't wait to discuss some of these things with you. We can still win this, Tom. I know that a lot of people are very, very demoralized right now and very discouraged right now at what they see. But these are the battle. These are really ultimately the only battles that are worth fighting. And we always have to remember what Theodore Roosevelt said. You know, obviously you want to win. You want to win everything all the time. But if you're able to look back on your life and say you were in the arena and you gave every bit of courage and heart that you had in pursuit of a noble cause, you have won. And you'll never be, and one thing you will never be, Tom Renz, you will never be among those cold and timid souls who know neither great victory or great defeat. I can promise you, you will never be in that category.
Well, that, sir, is another very meaningful thing, because I will insist. You can love me or you can hate me, but we don't do lukewarm. And we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to continue pissing everybody off, and we're going to continue doing what we do. And I don't really care if I have to be the last man standing out in the street, screaming about what's going on. We're going to fight until the bitter end. But I do believe what you said. We can make a difference, and I don't want people to misunderstand my weariness for a lack of conviction, because I will tell you what, we got a long ways to go. I'm nowhere near done, and none of us should be. And I want to remind all those that feel like I do, tired, worn out. Your kids depend on what you do today. They're going to depend on what you do tomorrow. And you're going to have to look back someday and know that at this point in our history, you got too tired to fight, or you stood up and did what you needed to. Someday we're going to have to explain to our kids why we let their future either slip away or how it was that we fought to save it. And we're at that point, and there's no going back. Because if the things that are happening now are allowed to take hold, it's too much to fight back. The person who's lost their home on the street in China, right now, that's a pretty uphill fight. We don't want to be in that position. We need to fight now while we have a chance. We're all here, we're all willing, but it's time. Listen, I don't care that Donald Trump's the president. We're not winning. This isn't what we voted for. This isn't what we asked for. And I'm not saying it's Trump's fault. I like Trump, but I didn't vote for 50-year mortgages, digital ID, Anthony Bourla to be at the White House, more mRNA vaccines, track and trace. I didn't vote for any of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad what he's doing with ICE. That's what I voted for. But the rest of this, well, it's pretty big. And I didn't vote for that.
Yeah. And he does listen. He does listen, Tom. One thing about Trump, I believe that he will listen to his base, and there are increasing numbers of people who are expressing real dissatisfaction, people whose opinion he values, who are expressing real dissatisfaction on some of these issues. So hopefully things will change, but we got to keep working. God bless you, Tom Renz. Um, I can't tell you what a privilege it has been to have you, and I look forward to working with you, sir.
It's my honor, and I look forward to helping the great people of Louisiana overcome some.
You bet.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day, Tom. Chris, I don't even know where to start. I mean, what an honor. He's such a fighter, and I just appreciate how much he is a clear-eyed truth teller. You know, I think we've been sugarcoating the Trump administration, perhaps. I think we've been given a lot of allowances, which are due. I think you mentioned that, you know. I think a ramping up period has been due, but I think the time for allowances may be over. And now it's time that we have to see some real justice. We have to see legislation and action that's going to move this country back to personal sovereignty, back to state sovereignty, back to us as a sovereign nation. I mean, that is the core of Make America Great Again. Make America Great Again is individual liberty.
Yes. That is exactly right, Danielle. And I think that everything at its core is a battle of good versus evil, and specifically a battle of tyranny versus individual freedom and individual liberty. That is the battle, and we're on the right side of the battle. There's no question about it. And I believe that President Trump at heart is on the right side of the battle. You know, as I told Tom, there's no one who has been a more direct victim of government tyranny on the national stage than Donald Trump. And so he does have an acute sensitivity for government overreach and government power. And I know he doesn't like the globalists messing in American affairs. So at heart, he's one of us. But I think Tom's point that he is surrounded by too many people who have prostituted themselves at the altar of what Donald Trump has spent his entire life fighting against. And that is what is so sad about what's occurring. That not only is he having to fight against his obvious enemies, he's having to try to figure out who his friends and who his enemies are within his own administration. And often he's not getting very good advice or very good guidance on these issues. And I think it's really, really unfortunate given everything that he has sacrificed to lead our country.
Yeah.
Don't really blame President Trump personally for any of this. I blame the people. I'm infuriated by the people who are surrounding him.
Yeah. And you know, Chris, a couple weeks ago, he promoted Dan Scavino, his right-hand man, who's worked for him for 30 something years, to head up the Office of Management and Budget, or Office of Presidential Personnel, rather. So he's in charge of screening the people that make it into the administration. So to me, that says that Trump recognizes the problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's put a really trusted longtime advisor, an immovable advisor, into a place to kind of be a gatekeeper. So I'm encouraged by that. But we have to pray. You know, I know this has been a weighty subject. I know this has been a very sobering conversation, and it's not the kind of conversation where people walk away and say, we're winning so much. But we are winning because we're on the side of truth. We're winning because the Lord is with us. We have to keep President Trump and this administration in our prayers. We have to pray for justice. We need to be prayerful that anyone who's around him that's not working for the people, that's not working for the best interests of the country, that's not in sync with what the Lord wants, needs to be exposed and removed by whatever means the Lord deems necessary, right?
Yeah.
So I think to me, this is a call to prayer and a call to action.
Absolutely. It is, when you live in the service of truth, like we try to do here, Danielle, on the state of freedom, you know, the truth is not always, a bed of roses. The truth is not always something that gives, you immediate inspiration, but the truth is it's extremely important. I don't want to be in a boat that's headed out to sea and thinking everything is okay, the sun is shining, and there's a hole in the hull and water is pouring into my boat and I don't even know about it. I'm not doing my crew a service by not letting them know about that hole. And so that's what we're trying to do here, and that's what Tom Renz is trying to do. But you're right. We need to hope. We need to pray for the Trump administration and pray that somebody will or is communicating with him. Just the absolute magnitude of the issues that we discussed today, so that he can do what's necessary. I'm even less concerned right now, Danielle, about who may be coming inside the gate than I am about who's already inside the gate that needs to be removed, as you said a minute ago. So,
a good point.
But I do believe that there's great hope. There's always great hope, and as you said, we have to approach this from the perspective of prayer and knowing that we have the victory, because it's all ultimately in God's timing and in His power.
Yeah. And Chris, I do want to remind you that this afternoon we need to take a look at that Uniform Commercial Code legislation that was looked at a couple years ago, because I have a very sinking feeling about that after Tom mentioned that it's being used as a Trojan horse for digital currency. And then
I remember that.
Yeah. And just an announcement, Chris, we will be celebrating on Thursday our 300th episode.
350.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So to celebrate 350, we will have our good friend Joe Hoft on. He will be fired up as always, but I think it's a great week to have him because there's the J6 pipe bomber. There is, of course, this ongoing, dance of the government shutdown, last week's sham elections, and, this Rico Grande case that John Solomon and others keep teasing, but we're not really, to Tom Renz's point, seeing the fruit of just yet. So I'll be very interested to hear what Joe has to say on Thursday. We know it will be spicy.
There is no one, Danielle, that I'd rather have on to celebrate 350 than Joe Hoft.
Yeah.
He is just a great American and a great patriot. Before we go, I want to make sure that everybody remembers, share, and subscribe the State of Freedom. As Tom said today, you asked him, Danielle, what should we be doing? And he said, what we're doing right now, because knowledge is power, and people cannot act in their own small way, in their own meaningful area, if they don't know what the facts are, if they don't understand the issues that we're facing. And we are a mechanism steadily building to make sure that everybody in the state of Louisiana, and even outside the state, is aware of what is really going on. That's why it is so vital that you tell your family and friends about the State of Freedom, that you subscribe, that you share everywhere, because we will continue to bring the truth to you so that you will know what is going on in your government. And Danielle, it's a tremendous privilege to be able to be on this great journey with you.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Chris. It's an honor, and we get to have a lot of fun and learn a lot along the way. So a big thank you to all of our faithful viewers and listeners. We wouldn't be here without you. Thank you for putting your trust in us. Thank you for spending time with us. And we hope that you have a very blessed day.
And in the words of the immortal William F. Buckley Jr.,
in vain we shall. The secret to losing weight 2 times faster has gone viral. See the transformations hundreds of thousands of men, women, and teens are experiencing around the world with the Slenderize drops. These homeopathic hormone-balancing drops are proven to control appetite, support thyroid function, improve energy, boost mood, and increase metabolic rate. To learn more about the drops or other incredible natural wellness and lifestyle products, email me at danielle@freedomstate.us or visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. Hey, Danielle Walker here. I'd love for you to check out my online boutique, Lux Lion. My mission for Lux Lion is to showcase innovative African designers and sustainable, mission-driven brands. To do that, I bring you stunningly beautiful handcrafted jewelry and accessories from some of my absolute favorite places on earth. Small batch wholesale for storefronts is also available. Join me in celebrating African artistry and shop now at luxlion.us. Use promo code FREEDOM for an additional 10% off your purchase. Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit LACAG.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.